In life, we have a lot of circumstances where we don't really get our way. If we let these circumstances take over too often, we're going to end up losing our drive to do anything new, anything different. The reason I'm talking about this is because I believe that many of the compassionate people, many of the emotionally aware people, tend to be the ones falling victim to circumstances where we don't necessarily have what we want out of a situation. You might think to yourself, well, you shouldn't always get what you want. I agree. There's a firm part of me that knows that that's a necessity. When the night road is long, take a back seat. Agreed. When you're having a good time in life, take a back seat. Maybe just take it in for a second. Sure. But to allow other people to make us feel like it is our responsibility to allow them to do what they want to do in life, that is a dangerous slope for two reasons. One is, first and foremost, if we feel that we are not being our authentic selves through the actions that we do with these people, then we're actually letting ourselves down. Two, if we allow ourselves to give in to something that we don't agree with that makes us feel bad, then we perpetuate this in the world. And I tend to be someone that says, listen, you're important. You're very important. In the groups that we are in, we are a percentage of those groups. Unless it's like 1 million people, 1 billion people, when you get to those numbers, 10,000 and up, it really becomes difficult to isolate individuals. But even then, leaders are essentially saying to themselves that, sure, I'm a percentage of this. I'm willing to take on more responsibility than just a percent of it. But in small groups, in groups where I would say less than 5 people, it becomes tremendously important to realize why we're there, to understand that, hey, our actions, the things that we say, the things that we think actually matter a lot in those circumstances. And the effect that it has on everyone else around us, especially over an extended period of time. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about groups in life, in systems and economies and friend relations and personal relations, whatever it is. Groups of people can be dangerous for us because they sure can make us feel at home and at peace, but they can also make us do irrational things that we haven't really thought fully through. We might follow the actions of the masses or an individual or a dictator, whatever it is. And I think it's very important for us to have the dignity and the restraint to say to ourselves, you know, I haven't really ever liked this, and I do it because of this person. Perhaps I should stop doing it and see how I feel afterwards. Oftentimes it comes with a sense of calm and peace, and oftentimes it comes with a sense of accomplishment, that we were able to leave behind perhaps something that we're very comfortable with doing. Something that I would encourage anyone watching these videos to do more in life. To change, to augment, to grow as a human being. I mean, what is the purpose of such a thing? Just to be useful, just to be ever useful in society and in our communities, our families. I think it's like the core of us that requires that to be a necessity in our lives, to be useful. At least for men. For women, I cannot speak. But for men, I can certainly say that the more a man feels like they are necessary in a system, the better they'll feel about themselves, and oftentimes the better the system will perform because of their support in it. So if you find yourself in circumstances where you're surrounded by kind of toxic people in life that drag you down in any capacity, and you find yourself going back to this behavior and find it difficult to break out of it, I'm here to tell you that the breaking out of it will not happen in that moment. The breaking out of it actually happens when we're spending time alone. Because the time that we spend alone, hopefully we do things that increase our respect for ourselves. And when self-respect increases perpetually and necessarily, we're able to value our time and the way that we feel more. It makes a drastic change in everything that a human being does. So if you find it difficult to leave those circumstances, I would first and foremost suggest finding what it is that makes you feel like you're the best, you're trying to at least be a better version of you. Alone, at home. If it's reading, if it's watching documentaries, if it's creating artwork, if it's networking, if it's writing, whatever it is, I say do it. Because at the end of the day, the people that are having us in toxic situations are often not doing that for themselves. And this outward exposure, this outward ripple that affects us, that perhaps shakes our boat or changes our mind, that genuinely comes from a place of insecurity. And when we leave those systems, when we leave those dictators, those toxic personalities behind, not only are we allowing ourselves the space to get away from that, to think freely, but we're also giving a social sanction to this individual or perhaps group that, hey, the stuff that you guys do isn't liked by everyone. And sometimes enough people saying that will actually change behavior. If they're hard-headed enough, it's not your job to change every single person in the world. I would say, however, it's your job to make sure that you are at least trying to be kind to yourself. And if that means removing yourself from a circumstance, a situation, I would advocate for that wholeheartedly, my friend. The quote that comes to mind is an actor was telling about his father, who was trying to give him some encouragement for moving on in life. And so he recounts a story of a flood in the town that they were in, and that there was a man that quite a few people that had drowned, and one in particular that they had known, who had drowned, and when he was found, that his leg was caught in something, and assumed that that's the reason that he drowned. And the dad said to the son, listen carefully, like, I wouldn't have drowned. And the son says, how would you not have drowned? He said, I would have chopped my leg off in order to survive. And I think every single one of us at some point in life has to have that realization, whether or not we value our survival, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, whatever it is, whether we value that enough to say to ourselves that things that we have considered essential to us, we are willing to let go of. And really, it's a game of trying to come to terms with this, because there's some things that we're willing to sacrifice and some things that we're not willing to sacrifice. And I would assume that the social likability aspect of a lot of compassionate people is what keeps us from, I'm a very compassionate person, but it keeps us from perhaps moving quicker in the direction that may be positive for us. So I make this video merely to, as a friend, say to you, it's okay to move on from toxic relationships. It's okay to separate yourself from that. That it is not your responsibility necessarily to carry that particular burden. There might be burdens in your life that are more important, that have greater service to society. And I would always advocate, perhaps we should, as a society, move towards accepting those responsibilities, and thus feeling better about ourselves, and making the world more fun and exciting and loving. Food for thought. If you ever need help in trying to figure out relationships, I'm no master at it, but I'd like to think that I have a rational approach, a useful approach. It's working for me. And I think it might be useful for someone. So if you found this interesting, smash that thumbs up button, helps me out a lot. Share it with someone that's in a toxic relationship that has a really hard time getting out and keeps coming back in again and again. It all comes down to self-respect. So actualize your potential catalyst. This world needs you. You take care of yourself. If you have a second, check out this video too. Peace.